Okay, really quick. Couple of things. I told you yesterday.
He pushed me.
You should have grabbed your notes from the back if you didn't. But I told you yesterday I would tell you how to improve your quiz grade from yesterday.
Do you need both of them?
No, they're the same thing. I just ran out of pink paper in the printer. Okay. So in order to earn up to a 95 on the quiz from yesterday, so that you can start this 6 weeks off with a high test grade, then you can do the 5.1.2 follow-up assignment, okay, which is the same type of questions from the quiz. It will only re-ask you the ones that you missed, okay? So if that you got 3 correct, then you're only going to see 7 on your follow-up assignment. If you got 7 correct, you're only going to see 3 on your follow-up assignment. Does that make sense? Okay, so if that you have all 10, then that means you missed all 10 of them, or at least partially. Because even if you only got partial credit, if I awarded you partial credit on it, then it still counted it that you didn't get full credit, so you still need to work on it. So once that we go over and recap the quiz again, I'm going to go over each of the questions because I'm recording it for Edpuzzle, so that you can go on there and look and see how we work these type of problems. They will not be the exact same questions from the quiz, but they will be similar. So if you forget how to do it, then you can go and watch the beginning of the Edpuzzle video to see how to work them again. It will be opened up. I know it says on there till Monday, but I forgot y'all don't have school on Monday. It's a teacher work day. So I'm opening it up until Tuesday, beginning of class period, but I'm not opening it up for you until after we're done with the notes today. So in order to find the recap, you have to go to the menu here and do exams and follow-ups, and you should see it listed here on your exams and follow-ups that you can go to, and it will open up and let you in. Okay, so my generic student here, for whatever reason, is having problems today. If you can't get into it, let me know so that I can figure out what's going on if it's not opening up for you. Okay, so so to answer that question, it's right there, right? Assignment, get more math. Yes. Okay. So let's do a recap on the quiz. Real quick, we're going to re-talk about all the ones that we talked about yesterday, but then we are also going to talk about any that we didn't. And I think we got through all of them yesterday, but since I'm recording today, we're going to talk about all of them so that you have them all talked about in the Edpuzzle for you to go and look at. Okay? So when that you're being asked for the domain and range of the exponential function, okay, your domain, like we talked about yesterday, 99% of the time is all real numbers. Okay, the only time that it's not all real numbers is if it's a word problem, or if it specifically has a hole in the graph or a stopping point that tells you it stops right there. Okay, if it doesn't, then it's implied that it keeps going. Okay, forever on the ends. Okay, so in this one, it asks you for the domain, so it's all real numbers. The range stops right here. It levels out right here. It doesn't go any lower than that line right there. That line is your asymptote. Okay? That's that invisible line that you can't cross. Okay? So this is y equals -2. And because your exponential equation doesn't cross that line, then that's what makes your range y is greater than -2. Okay? It's greater than -2 because my graph is above y equals -2. And even though it looks like it touches -2, it doesn't. It gets closer and closer and closer and closer, but it never actually reaches that line. The second question gave you function notation for exponential function and asked you to dissect it like we did on Monday. So the initial value is the number that's out front here, right, which is 890. The only answer here that says initial number did not say 890, so it was wrong. Right? These other ones says increases or decreases. Well, this number is greater than 1, so it's not decreasing. And when we're talking about percentages, we had to take into account the 100% that we started with. So that 100% gets taken off of our percentage or added to or whatever, however you need to think about it. Right? So the increase was only the 0.49, which is 49%. So that's what made the last one the correct answer. On questions like this, where that you're given the table and you're being asked to come up with the function, okay, you have to figure out what the pattern is to start with. Okay? If the pattern is multiplying, okay, if it's multiplying by 3, if this had been multiplying by 3, it's not, it's adding by 3. Right? This one was a linear problem. So it looked like this, where that the pattern still gets paired with the x. Okay? And wherever you started is your y-intercept. And it gets added on the end because it's a linear equation. Okay? Now, if it were multiplying by 3 on here instead of adding by 3, then it would have been an exponential function, and my pattern of multiplying by 3 would have still been paired with my x. Okay? And the beginning amount, my y-intercept, would still be here at the beginning. It's still my initial value. Okay? So just depends on which type of function it is. That's why you need to be able to determine which type of function so you know how to write the equation. If you are not sure, write it both ways and then substitute in a number. So substitute 3 in right here. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 2. That does equal 11. So that works. If I put 3 here, 3 to the third power is 27 times 2 is not 11. Okay, I don't even care what it is. I know it's not 11. 27 was already bigger than 11, and if I'm going to double it, it's even going to be bigger. So that one doesn't work. Okay, so if you're not sure, then use the information you're given to help check your work. This word problem here asks you before using the fertilizer, right, it was increasing exponentially, how much before the start of the growing season, right, were they doing before they started, right? I think the question might be underneath down here. Okay, so before they started using the new fertilizer. So that's your starting point before any changes happen to it. So that's your initial value, and it said in thousands, the units. So it's not just 3, It's 3,000. So in this one, horizontal asymptote, that's that line we talked about in that first problem again. It's the line where it levels out here, right? Whatever that is. So y equals 6. Horizontal lines are y equals lines. Vertical lines are x equal lines. Okay? Horizontal asymptotes cannot be x equals because x equals is vertical. Okay? Z, I don't know, horizontal, if you don't know your horizontal and vertical, Z is closer to Y and V is closer to X alphabetically for vertical. I don't know if that helps anybody, but trying to give you some way to help you remember which one's which. Okay, so Y equals 6 is the asymptote here. If it asks you if it's true or false, if that your asymptote is not right up against your line, it's false. If it's going this way, it's false. Okay, it has to be right there touching the line where it levels out to be true. Okay, simplifying a radical. This is where that you can use your calculator to help you. Type in factor, parentheses, and whatever number is underneath the radical. In this case, it was 92. Okay. Several problems on Get More Math were like 6 square roots of 43 or something like that. And it wants you to simplify it. 43 is a prime number. It's already simplified. So if you put factor 43 in and it just gives you 43 back out, then that means it's a prime number and it can't be factored anymore, which means it can't be simplified anymore. So 6 square roots of 43 is the most simplified, and that's what you would put back in there for your answer. Okay. When it factors it for you on the calculator, it would say 2 squared times 23. Okay. So here we can see if I take the square root of 2 squared, that's 2. Okay. And this 23 doesn't have a match, doesn't have something to make it come out, so it stays underneath the radical. The next one down is simplifying exponents. Okay. There is always, every year, at least 1 or 2 of these type of problems on the STAR test. Every year. So you need to have an idea of what to do on this. Because every year there's a problem like this on there. Okay. So if that it's dividing, okay, a fraction by a fraction, flip it and multiply. Okay, that's the first thing to do. Okay, that's what we did down here. We multiplied. Because we're multiplying 2 fractions, I just put them all on the same fraction bar. Okay, and then anything that's negative, move it to the other side of the fraction bar. So that's why my W to the second power ended up on top, because it was -2 on bottom. And so I had to move it. So make sure that you move your negatives and then simplify. So then I was left with Z to the 5th, W to the 3rd, and P on bottom. Okay, so make sure that you know your exponential laws. Okay, 3 was bigger than 2, so that's why we ended up with a W on bottom. Okay, we also had this other W to the 2, so you could have saw that those canceled each other out, which left you W to the 3. Either way, but use your laws. Do it one step at a time. Don't try to look at it and do it all at once in your head or whatever. One step at a time, guys. That's how you're going to get through problems like that. Okay. Number 8 on this one was asking you to do the perimeter. The perimeter means it's adding the sides together. If you are adding, you cannot combine things that don't match exactly. Okay, on our little, we've got exponentials, so exponents to exponents, multiplying, addition on our little ladder here, right? If you are adding things with exponents together, there is nothing to do, okay? So nothing, nada to do. If that they don't match exactly, you can't do anything because you can't change your exponents when you're just adding. So in this case, all I can do, because c squared d to the fifth does not match c cubed d, so all I can do is multiply each side by 2, because I've got 2 of each of those sides, and add them together. So I did 2 times 4c squared d to the fifth gave me 8, plus 2 times 1 c to the third d gave me 2 c to the third d. Okay, I can't do anything else with it because my variables and exponents don't match exactly. Number 9, ask for the area, which means, or it gives you the area actually, and one side, and you have to find the other side, which means I'm dividing. So 186 divided by the side that I do know. Right? So 186 divided by 93 was 2. 9 minus 7, because 9 was bigger, gave me 2 on my A. 8 was bigger, minus the 7 gave me B to the 1. I don't have to write the 1 because it's invisible, so I don't write it. And the very last question, okay, is fractional exponents. Nothing is different about this than if they were whole number exponents. What would you do if this was just a 2 and a 3? You would multiply them. Same thing happens here. Just because they're fractions, nothing changes. You keep the base of 5. It wants it in exponential form, so it's not asking you for a decimal number or whatever. It's asking you for it in exponential form, so the base stays the same. What is 1/2 times 1/3? It's 1/6. So 5 to the 1/6 power is your answer. And that's it. You can't do anything else with it. It doesn't want you to do anything else with it. Okay, that's it. Okay, so Mason, head up for me. Juan, Jonathan, Joshua. Okay, so that is how you work out. So we've worked through an example of every single one of those. That's recapping everything from Unit 7 that we did and talked about, and that will be on the test next week on the Unit 7, Unit 8 test that we're combining. Okay, so today's notes should go pretty quickly once we get started here. So quadratic functions, okay, are always, okay, x squared. So quadratic functions will always have a term that has an x squared in it. We already talked about how a quadratic function looks like a U shape, right? That shape is called a parabola, and that's given to you down below. So parabola. So on the parent function, it's hard to see the differences between all of these things because they look like they're all exactly the same, right? So the vertex, however, is just this coordinate. So the vertex for this would be 0, 0. The minimum is whatever the y is of the vertex. It's the minimum point of my graph. So y equals 0. Now these 4 things over here really are all the same thing. And you need to know that these are all synonyms of each other. that all of those things are talking about the same exact thing. Okay, Josh, head up for me. Abraham, head up for me. Okay, the 0, solution, root. Jonathan, will you tap his elbow for me? Tell him to get his head up. Come on, head up, Abraham. Okay, so all of these things, okay, all of these things are talking about the x-intercept. Rarely on the STAR test will it ask you for the x-intercept. It will almost always ask you for the 0, the solution, or the root, or roots. Okay, so they're all asking you for the same thing. The axis of symmetry is this line right here. You should be familiar with lines of symmetry. Right? Since elementary school, you've been having to draw lines of symmetry that cut shapes in half so that they're exactly the same on both sides, right? So an axis of symmetry is no different. Okay, it's the line that cuts your parabola in half. Okay, we call this A, capital A, little o, capital S is your axis of symmetry. That's how it's abbreviated. Okay, so if you're asked for the AOS, that's what it's talking about. Okay. And it is always x equals whatever your x value is of your vertex. Okay. So now look at the inside here, and let's do a couple of examples together. Okay, so the vertex is always a point. It's always a coordinate. So what is the vertex of this one?
Maybe not.
1. Head up. Take notes. What is it, Preston?
-9?
No, 4. It is -9, but what?
4 -9?
Not 4.
1 -9.
Oh, 1 -9. Right? So right here, label it. That's your vertex. Okay. 1 -9. The axis of symmetry is a line. It goes right through the vertex. So it is x equals what?
1.
1. It has to be an equation. It has to be x equals because we're talking about a line. Is there a minimum or a maximum on this graph?
Maximum.
Because it keeps going up, right?
Yeah.
So when it goes down, it's the minimum. When it goes up, it's maximum.
Okay. When it opens upwards, it has a minimum because it has a bottom like the cup. Like a cup. And so
that one would be maximum. So
this is yeah, the other one would be maximum because it's like a bridge, so it has a high point, right? And the other one has a low point like a valley. So yeah. Okay. So this is a minimum, and it's always the y of your vertex. Okay, and that is a y, not an x. It looks kind of like x. Okay. Y equals -9. Josh, are you taking notes? Mm-hmm. Okay. So your zeros are your zeros are what? What did I tell you about these 4 things right here?
But there's all talking about the
They're all talking about your x-intercepts. Okay, so these are all exactly the same thing. Okay, so right here and right here. Okay, these are my zeros, my roots, my solutions, and my x-intercepts. Okay, same thing over here. Zeros, roots, x-intercepts, and solutions. Okay, this right here was my AOS. Okay, so zeros, roots, solutions, x-intercepts can be written a few different ways. Okay, so one way to write them is as coordinates, right? So we've got -2, 0, right? And 4, 0, if we list them as coordinates. Okay? If we list them as a list of numbers, which is how they will most often be listed on the STAR test, right? So they would have to use the squiggly braces. Okay? You cannot use parentheses because parentheses mean an ordered pair, right? So you have to use the squiggly braces if you're meaning a list of values. Okay, so my zeros would be -2, 4. My roots would be -2, 4. My solutions would be -2, 4. My x-intercepts would be -2, 4. Okay. On Get More Math, I don't believe that it wants you to put the braces, but I want you to be aware of the braces for the STAR test, that that's often how that the answers might be listed for you. Variable or something like that. Yeah. So if it pops that up, then it just means it doesn't want it as a coordinate if you listed it as a coordinate, or if you put the braces in it, it just wants you to put the two numbers with a comma between them. Okay, so y-intercept. The y-intercept is -9. Oh, not -9. It's not -9. That's your minimum. What's your y-intercept? -8. Okay, so the y-intercept is right here. Okay. Come on. 1, eyes open. Come on, Abraham. 2. Okay. So my domain. What did I tell you yesterday about the domain? It's the x's, but it's what? All real numbers. When in doubt, select all real numbers. 90% of the time, that's it. Again, the only time it's not is word problems, because it doesn't make sense to have negative people, negative time, negative tickets, negative seats, negative apples, whatever. Okay, when you're counting something, you don't typically have negative unless you talk about money. Okay, so all real numbers for your domain. The range is different. Okay, the range, you're going to use your minimum. Okay, so we know my number is going to be -9 and my variable is y. Is my graph greater than the -9 or less than the -9?
Greater than?
It's greater than. All of my values on my parabola are greater than -9. Okay, do they equal -9? Yes, so it's greater than or equal to -9. For an exponential equation or a function, that's different. It's not the or equal to because it doesn't actually ever touch that line, right? So on this next one, I'm going to give you a few minutes to answer it on your own. I'm going to walk around and see that you're actually trying to answer it on your own. Okay, it won't take you that long to do it. So I'm only going to give you like 2 minutes. We're going to talk about it. So from what I saw walking around, most of you guys that were working on it actually were doing good. Okay, so vertex should be 1, 4. That's a coordinate. Okay, your axis of symmetry is a line, so it's x equals 1. Then you have a maximum because you have a high point. It's like a mountain. Okay, high point, y equals 4. That is also the number that you use in your range, guys. Okay, so whatever your minimum or maximum is what you use in your range. If it's a maximum, then that means there's nothing higher than that, which means your y, your range is less than or equal to it. So less than or equal to 4. Y-intercept was 3. Your zeros, roots, solutions, x-intercepts were all negative 1, 3.
Wait, so I did it that I put the 3 first.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the order that you list those.
I had it right.
Okay, so 3, negative 1 is also correct if you listed 3, negative 1. Okay, you do have to have both of them to be correct though. Okay, now in your Get More Math assignment for today, if it asks you for the zeros, roots, or whatever, and it doesn't give you the graph, but it gives you an equation, what are you going to do with that so you can look at the graph to figure it out? Desmos, right? Okay. If that it's not an exact integer number answer, then use your mouse and go to the point and until x equals 0, okay, and figure out what the coordinate is. And on those, because second period did have a few of those, it said to round to the nearest hundredth. That's 2 decimal places, guys. Don't round to 1 decimal place. It won't count it right. Okay, 2 decimal places if it says to round it to the nearest hundredth. Okay, but you have to make sure that your x or your y equals 0 on that coordinate for it to be your x-intercept or your 0 or your root or whatever it's asking you for. Okay, so that's the end of our notes. Told you the notes wouldn't take too long. So I have opened up the follow-up already, so you're welcome to work on that or get your other stuff done. Because I had a few people asking questions, I was going to leave the Get More Math stuff open until at the end of homeroom today to finish answering the last few questions. And then I am closing them down. I will not have time this weekend to get grades put in. That's why I'm closing things down early. I'm moving my daughter to Corpus this weekend. So because grades got shifted to this weekend, doesn't mean my schedule got to change any because I had already had this plans a while back. So my grades have to get done early. So y'all stuff has to get done earlier than maybe for other classes.